Barry? Okay, he says.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Ridgecrest City Council. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order at 5:01 p.m. Roll call.
Mayor Bruin?
Here.
Mr. Blades?
Present.
Mr. Rajaratnam?
Present.
Ms. Breeden? Here. We have 4 present. Mr. Heyman is not present at the current time.
Okay. Next item is the approval of the agenda. The agenda includes a closed session, which we're going into first. Do I have a motion for approval of the agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. We can use it.
No. Yes, there we go. I thought he was waving no. Please vote.
There it goes.
We have 4 ayes, 1 absent. Motion carries.
Okay, next item is public comment on the closed session. We have 2 closed session items, a personnel matter for labor negotiations, conference of real property negotiator, and I believe a third item was added.
Yes, it was.
I apologize, I don't have that in front of me, but I know there's a third item as well.
Property negotiation as
Property
well.
negotiation, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have it in my folder, I just left over there. This is the opportunity for public comment on closed session. Is there any public comment from the floor? Seeing none, is there any public comment on the phone? Seeing none, I will go ahead and close public comment on the closed session, and we will go ahead and adjourn into closed session. We'll return at 6 p.m. Okay, good evening. We're going to return to open session at 6:03 p.m. Thank you for your 3-minute patience. If I can ask everyone to go ahead and please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Chief, why don't you do it?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Solomon, if you'd like to lead us in the invocation.
Please join me in prayer. Lord, thank you for giving us this day. Lord, thank you for this city of Ridgecrest which you have given to us. Bless this city. Lord, bless our country. So many things are happening in our country. Give our leadership your wisdom as to how they have to deal with so many financial issues and other matters, Lord. Pray for our state leaders, our county leaders. Give them your wisdom to run their jobs. Lord, I pray for Ridgecrest. I pray for the troops who are in harm's way. Protect them from all evil. I pray for the police department who are protecting this city, and give them your protection as they protect us. Lord, I pray for the family of Philip Campus, who died, who passed away doing his service, Lord. Bless his family, give them your comfort, Lord. Be with all of us today and bless each one of us. Let your presence be here as we talk about many issues, and let our decisions be beneficial to this community. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Lloyd, attorney's report out of closed session.
Thank you, Mayor Bruin. Lloyd Pilchin, City Attorney. City Council met in closed session on 3 matters identified on the agenda. One was personnel matters, labor negotiations involving mid-management, confidential employees, and UFCW Local 8. And 2 items of conference with real property negotiator. Properties are identified on the agenda. Direction was given. No reportable final action was taken. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Next item on the agenda is public comment of items not on the agenda. Persons wishing to appear to address the council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council may not take action on any item that does not appear on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes, and the public comment section of the agenda is limited to a total of 1 hour. Each speaker is asked to provide his or her name. I can hear phone calls going on, so I'm going to go ahead and real quickly take from the floor, and then I will go ahead and let the phone calls begin. Is there any public comment from the floor? Seeing none, is there any public comment on the phones? Caller, state your name.
This is Will Freeman.
Please proceed, sir.
Yes, can everyone hear me okay?
Yep, very well.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to bring up the topic of LED streetlights with regards to new installations and replacements. This is something I became aware of last January, February, and I had talked to our Public Works back then. When 2 LED streetlights were installed on Drummond between Arroyo and Mahan, the issue folks in that area on the south side of Drummond have and are still dealing with is the excessive light from those 2 LED streetlights. After looking into this, the problem is that those LEDs are 4,000K spectrum and unshielded lights, according to SCE. Now, 4,000K lights produce a much wider wavelength of light that is perceived by the retina to be harsher than standard lights. And unshielded lights scatter light in all directions, further adding to the problem. In this particular case, because the north side of Drummond is a few feet higher and the new lights appear to be taller, and Drummond and Arroyo is now the only branch off of Drummond that has 2 lights at the intersection, there was already an existing light there. Additionally, further adds to the problem. The issue, however, is not isolated just to those 2 lights, and many cities have been dealing with the same issue. Also, with the prospect of Ridgecrest replacing all standard sodium lights with LEDs, this will affect everyone in Ridgecrest depending on how it's implemented. Other cities have come up with solutions by mandating 2100 Kelvin to 2700K spectrum lights, which produce a warmer amber light, much like the standard sodium lights, which have a 2100K to 2300K equivalent spectrum, and by mandating 2 shielded lights, which direct the light toward the ground as opposed to scattering light in all directions of space. So having these 2 requirements for LEDs would likely solve the issue in Ridgecrest as well. Now, there are a few other things also that need to be considered that I will not have time to discuss here, such as smart lights and the height of the light, etc. But these 2 requirements that I've just mentioned are a good starting point for consideration. I've been in discussions with some of our Public Works and City Council folks to, 1, confirm the specifications of what's been installed, the make and model number, Kelvin spectrum, and confirm that no shielding is on the lights on Drummond. And 2, find out what Ridgecrest requirements are for LEDs that SCE installs, and see if any changes need to be made. As this is a quality of life issue, I would suggest at a minimum that we require all LEDs to be 1 at the appropriate spectrum, which presumably would be somewhere between 2100K and 2700K, and some testing may be needed to determine this. And 2, require shielded lights. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing a very good pieces of information. You want to fill in some, Travis? I had a feeling you were getting ready to.
Good evening, Council. I did speak with John C. King, who's our area manager for streetlights, and working with our project. So recently in the past, the LEDs that were spec'd by the city were 100-watt equivalent lights. So they're 39-watt LED fixtures, which utilize a 3,000 Kelvin, which is their standard warm color spectrum that SCE uses. I've had a at-length conversation with Mr. Freeman the other day about the lights. I didn't have that information at that time. Hopefully he can still hear me and he can see the information, but we are in the process of doing some research on where some other lights that are LEDs have been installed, so that way we can go look at them and try to gauge and get a better idea of what we think would work best. Ultimately, I think obviously there's pros and cons to it being bright. I think we all know that the pro is Where it's brighter, you've got less riffraff. Where it's darker, you can have a little more riffraff. But I do agree, have to agree with him that they are pretty bright. They do light up backyards on the other side of the road. I think a lot of that has to do with, as Mr. Freeman brought to my attention, and I hadn't really thought about it until he said it, the northern side of Drummond sits about 2 feet higher than the southern side of Drummond. So the lights there, I think that'll be a prime candidate for some shielding to direct the light to where we want it to go. So. Okay.
And so when Mr. Freeman talked to me, he brought up another good point, because you had already told us that we're going to put lights throughout SE is going to come and put lights throughout the city. If we're seeing this much of an issue just in this one spot, we're about to receive a whole city full of issues. So I'm hoping that we can do either shielding or change that spectrum of light that we're getting a hold of. But I guess that begs the question, can you change?
So, honestly, I didn't ask if we can change because I didn't know what it was yet. Until I knew what was spec'd, I didn't know if we were already in that range, if we weren't in that range. But I am in the process of trying to figure out what is going to be, what we feel, Public Works feels is going to be the best range for us. I do know that you have to remember those are arterial lights. So arterial lights are brighter than residential regular lights. So our regular lights that are inside the residential tracks are not as bright. I think they are, I want to say 31 watt LED equivalent fixtures. But technically just looking at arterial streets, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer, a given that they are going to be brighter. But I do think that maybe where we have these grade differences and things like that, that some shielding could be necessary. I don't necessarily think putting shielding on every light is a viable solution at the tune of $200 a pop for the shielding. So, but I think we're ones where we've seen complaints. I would say definitely we should look into either shielding or if we can change the Kelvin spectrum or maybe look into going to a little bit softer light. So that's the information I have now, and I can do more research, report back, try to figure out a better solution for you guys for the near future. And hopefully Mr. Freeman's okay with that too.
I would say reporting back with more information. We're underway.
Right. Just remember that those that complain it's going to be too bright, or those are also now going to complain it's not bright enough. Not bright enough. So you're going to end up with a Goldilocks scenario here. So I think we just take a look at when they install them as what's best for the community. If the lights we've chosen are inherently too bright, then maybe we can lower the intensity down, or just deal with the individual issues as they come up.
Yeah, I think after Mr. Freeman did a lot of research, which I don't know if he can still hear us, but I appreciate him doing all the research. He went into incredible depth for light spectrum, and so on and so forth. I realized that it was less about the intensity of the light, and more about just where it fell on your visual spectrum. And if it was just a little bit of a warmer spectrum, I think that would fix probably most of our problems. And so that's why I'm asking you. I don't even know if it's possible for us to, at this point downstream, at this point in the stream, change what SCE is going to do.
That is something I do not know. I have, like I said, I just inquired about how bright the lights were, what the spectrum was, to try to see where we were on that range. And that was spec'd by the city back when track 6908 and track 7188 were going in. Those are the first tracks that we've seen LED streetlights. So obviously, probably going to be a little bit of a learning curve. I would assume that when Mr. Culp did his research on it, that he probably inquired in other desert cities to see what they were using.
Yep. I'm not disparaging anybody at all.
Yep.
I think we're just learning.
Absolutely, and that's
right.
Ultimately what it is. So
I would just say report back and thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Next, any public comment any other public comment on the phones? John, I'm going to come back to the floor after the phones, okay? Caller, state your name.
My name's Mike Neal.
Please proceed.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Just finished listening to the discussion about the streetlights. I'd like to point out that is a good example of how council can and will, when they choose to, respond to a citizen during public comment, despite the ongoing practice for most of the time of, get up and have your say and we can't respond to you. You just demonstrated that you can when you want to. So I'm glad that you actually did. It would be nice to see the council actually respond more in the future to other citizens when they come up with issues at public comment. Now, on to my public comment about probably the hottest button issue in town, and one that should be on the regular agenda, was stated to have been requested to always be on the regular agenda, and I'm having to call in on regular open public comment because it is not on the agenda tonight, and that's about the Groundwater Authority. The biggest sore point in this valley in years and years, one that many, many people are waking up to, primarily because their water district users are finding out about the huge increase in what they're having to pay in their water bills, and the fact that probably almost all of the Trolley employees are now figured out, been told, been warned that their very livelihoods can be in jeopardy. And this being the only public agency meeting that people can come to at a reasonable hour in the evening after they get off work to speak to at least the one GA representative who is there sitting on the city council, Mr. Heyman. Heard seen numerous complaints on Facebook. You can look at the Citizens Unfairly Affected by the Groundwater Fees Facebook page. People saying, we can't get to the meeting. It's at 11 in the morning. But, Groundwater Authority continues to do that, hold those meetings at that time, making it clear. And I never once heard Mr. Heyman lobby for having that meeting at a better hour. I don't know that I've heard anybody except Mr. Rotora lobby for having the meeting at a better hour. So why in the world is either council leaders or staff, city staff, trying to not allow, or, make it harder for citizens to address this issue and see it on the agenda to be discussed at city council when it's, since day one, it's been discussed multiple times since the GA started. All of a sudden, it's just not there. Well, I'd like to hear some answer from somebody. Do you care that your citizens are given an opportunity to speak to this issue? Do you care enough to keep it on as an agenda item so it's obvious to the public that you want to have discussion? Or do you just want to try to bury it and make it easy for your representative to continue to have free reign and do as he jolly well wants without any discussion, without any direction from the council? It'll be up to you to demonstrate this. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Do I have any other callers on the phone? None? I have one additional comment on the floor.
Officer for Naval Air Weapons Station China Lake. Since it was brought up this evening, there would be a concern with that many lights being put in unshielded. That would have a dramatic effect on dark skies, or it would create the lack thereof. That would have a definite mission impact when it comes to our night missions, both testing and training. So just something to consider.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment? Very good. We'll go and close public comment. Council announcements. We'll go right to left. Anything?
Yes, I'd like to thank staff for all the work they're doing on the website and social media. I think it's exciting when you see all the new announcements, how pleasantly they're done, how attractively they're done, and more important, it's colorful, and people look at it and read it, and I want to thank staff for the extra work that they've done to create all the new addition on social media. Thank you.
Done.
My one is going to be, is the public doesn't know the conversations that happen in closed session, but I want to share just a little tidbit of I literally said, wow, this is a awesome council and this is so much fun, were I think the last words I said when I walked out of there. And it wasn't because we were all just kumbayaing, but it's because we're all actually showing a deep care and concern for this community, and it's cool to see. So that's my council announcement. Thank you to my council members. I enjoy having civil discussion for the best interests of this community.
I don't have any.
I wanted to add on to what Peggy was saying. I do appreciate the movement that our staff for social media is huge. The outreach that our staff is doing is taking a lot of extra time out of their day, and I can't thank you enough for that. Hopefully the community is recognizing that there is an effort and outreach, and I guess Skip, since you're here, I listened to your audio blog, and it was. I want to say I appreciate your input, because there are things that could have probably been thrown out there. For those of you who do not hear Skip's audio blog, he had some, I'm going to say constructive criticisms, is how I took it, of things that we could change in the future and how we can poll the community. Is that accurate, Skip?
Sure. Much of what you say is accurate.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. Staff's making a great effort, a huge effort. They're thinking outside the box and trying to get things done. And so that's all I'm announcing. I'm announcing that I appreciate everything that you're doing. I know that not so much you, Skip, but sometimes it's not always easy. Okay, sometimes that you're going to hear things that aren't positive back, and that's okay. Thank you for moving forward.
Fantastic. Okay. To our regular work of the day. First item is the consent calendar. There's one item on the consent calendar, which is the approval of the draft minutes of the Ridgecrest City Council meeting dated July 21st, 2021. Do any members of the council wish to have this item pulled? Does any member of the public wish to have this item pulled? Hearing none, do I have a motion for approval of the one item in the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and second.
Please vote. Five ayes, motion carries.
Okay, next item is our public hearing. We'll be holding a public hearing on the proposed amendment to the County of Kern fiscal year 2021-2022 annual action plan application regarding the Kern County Community Development Block Grant, the CDBG, for those of you who are learning the acronym soup. Program application to revise the planned upgrades at the Leroy Jackson softball fields and approval of resolution. We'll go ahead and do they present first?
No, you can open.
We open the
Yes,
public
please.
hearing, then they present, yeah. So we'll go ahead and open this public hearing. And Narissa.
Good evening, Council. So I'm here basically to update you guys on the application for the CDBG grant and the project selection. Initially, we were going to combine the funds of CDBG with the per capita grant that we've been awarded to do some upgrades at the softball fields at Leroy Jackson. We're still going to do that, but we've basically separated the projects. So CDBG will be focused on putting fencing around the softball fields, and that's what that money will be used for, and the per capita alone will be used for shade. So that is what I have.
We'll go council comments first, and then public comment. Any council comments in regards to the CDBG? Peggy? Scott?
How tall of a fence are they looking at putting around the fields?
It's an 8-foot fence.
8 foot? Okay.
I have none.
I do have a couple of questions. So why do we have to separate these two? Earlier it was combined per capita grant as well as a CDBG. So now you are separate. We already got the per capita grant, I think, right?
Correct.
Okay, so why are we separating this now?
So for the per capita, we had to submit a project application, and that project has to be approved before they release funds to us. So for the paperwork process of it all, it made it a lot simpler. And then for CDBG, it makes the keeping track of all of the documentation for the county easy as well.
Okay. Fencing was not in the original proposal, so how did that come into this now?
So originally, we were going to do the shade, and then by separating it out and doing more research, originally we were only going to do the covered dugouts and provide shade there. But by getting more accurate estimates, we were able to find out that we would be able to put shade over some of the spectator seating as well as the dugouts. So by separating the funds, it made it easier to delegate those funds to those projects. So with that, we had money left over, so CDBG would cover a fence.
So we are still going to do the other thing, shade structure, which was
Correct.
earlier proposed, right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I just want to reiterate for the community, you did take public input for how that money is going to be spent and where it's going and what you're working on.
Correct.
Thank you. Nothing further, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any public comment in regards to the proposal? No public comment from the floor. Any public comment on the phones? No public comment on the phones. We're going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Is there any other discussion from any council members?
I forgot to ask one question.
Absolutely, sir.
The construction cost is showing 45,420, which seems to be a lot. So can you explain why? How we arrived at that 45,420?
That was what we got from the company who would be handling the project.
Okay, so what does it involve? What construction is involved?
So
in
that would be, because there's going to be like digging in, putting all of the poles, and then just the space of the fence. It's a very large area. So that was what they quoted us for.
Okay. Is that something reasonable?
I'd say when you factor in Davis-Bacon and the prevailing wage,
Yeah.
factor prevailing wage and everything changes by at least.
It seemed a little bit high for me, so.
Just to put a little perspective on in everybody's cup here, we all know where the new well site that the Water District put in off of Bowman Road is, right? So that is roughly 5 acres of fencing, so 330 by 660 with one 20-foot entrance gate and one 4-foot man gate. That was $53,000 for 3 rows of barbed wire and razor wire. So to go around the fields, $45,000 on a prevailing wage rate is a very good price.
Okay, thank you.
And so the biggest cost is at that prevailing wage.
You're looking at, so your typical prevailing wage rate these days for a day laborer to come out and work is $47 an hour now.
Yeah, because I was looking at the cost of, chain link, and it's on average on the nation, it's like $20, $10 to $20 per foot for the, cost of materials, and approximately the same for construction costs. And when you look at the cost that we're incurring, it's basically about double that.
What was your per foot price? If you have it, if you can remember off the top of your head.
Me. I don't remember.
You don't remember. So I would say that with what I've seen as far as installation for concrete for all the posts, 6 foot with 3 strands of barbed wire and razor wire, I want to say we're around $52 to $58 a lineal foot. That's material and installation. So I don't know what the lineal footage is that you guys are putting in. But
30, it's 37.
$37 a lineal foot is a really good price.
And so one of the thoughts I had when I was reading through it was when it comes to a project like this, is there any way that the city can do it with our employees with prevailing wages, and but the same? But
we can procure materials and lay it out, and staff can put it in, and you would save the prevailing wage cost. So then you would just be $20 a lineal foot. The big thing is what's hard with these federal grants and grants like that is the paperwork and the processing to be able to do it like that is tough, to say the least. It's like when we looked into the Cal OES stuff for earthquake stuff. They almost push you to use your bidding process and to hire it out, because I think it's more of a economy stimulus in a way. Probably not the right way to say it, but they're looking to create jobs with this money or create work with this money rather than having it done in-house.
That's how I was looking at it from the city's perspective. If we were able to keep it, do it in-house and provide the benefit of it to local, in-house employees. But,
Yeah, but we'd be taking from something else that we're already not doing at the same time.
well, I'm just saying, when you're looking at double the cost of, is it feasible? But no, I think you.
I would absolutely say it's feasible. I think your guys are more than capable of doing the work, but at the same time, they've got a bunch of other duties they have to do, and then you factor in putting this fence up, and I think there's some time issue factored into that as far as a contractor's going to be able to come in with their crew and blow this fence out in probably 6 to 7 days, where the guys are going to be able to put 2-3 hours in on it, maybe get a quarter of the poles in and concrete it, and then you're going to be paying short load fees for concrete. You're going to be paying, there's a lot of things that start to add up that with the paperwork side of grants and the time, I would say, involved with it, you're almost kind of, like I said, pushed to go the contractor route.
I know we're strapped on our, manpower as it is, but the thought was there when you look at it, can you do it in-house?
And you see that, absolutely. Anytime you add, if you take anything that you can do normal, when you put Davis-Bacon wages on it, times it by 2.
We're forced to see that chain link fence going for $47 a foot.
Thank you. I was just curious because the fence cost is $45,000 and the construction is $45,000. So I just wanted to, I'm not a builder or anything. I'm not even a handyman, so I don't know anything.
So 37 is 37 material and installed, or is that just installation cost?
The 37 is the installation, I believe.
That's not materials included?
No.
It's not
Materials is
material.
45, and installation, equipment and materials was 56,000, and construction cost was 45,400. And then with a 6% escalation.
It doesn't seem outrageous to me, but I'll work with Narissa. We'll look at it and we'll make sure. Obviously this is going to go out to bid anyway, or it's going to go through a Sourcewell, or it's an approved price. So it'll have either already been out to bid or it will go out to bid. So I think that's a safe estimate.
Those numbers came from Sourcewell, so they've already been out to bid.
Okay. So there's a safe estimate.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other council comments? Okay. Do I have a motion for approval of the resolution as presented?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Please vote. Five ayes, motion carries.
Next item on the agenda is item number 3, proposed approval of increased appropriations to the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget for building professional services. So this is Mr. Reed.
I'm back. No.
Welcome back.
So this is basically it's kind of a revolving door. As we all know, there's been quite a bit of building that's going on. So as we pull more permits, money comes in and more money goes out because you've got more inspections, you've got more plan checks, you've got things like that. So this is basically just a correction to our budget. The money's there from the permits. It's just basically moving it to where we need it. So, and if you've got any other questions as far as?
I have one basic one.
Don't steal mine.
Are we going to steal each other's? I don't know. It's very possible. Why would we be approving a resolution for the 2021 budget that's already closed?
So it's not completely closed yet. We still have our invoices for inspection and plan check come in a month later. So we get billed monthly.
So is this just to make the GL look pretty? I don't understand the purpose behind the resolution for money already spent in a previous budget year.
Because the money hasn't been spent yet. That's what I'm saying. The money is not in the account to be able to spend to pay that bill from 2021's fiscal year.
So we already have the bills for 2021?
We have the bill for June now, so we know how much we need to add to it so the GL count can cover the cost of inspection and plan check for that month.
Fair enough. Okay, now my second question. since we're already into another budget cycle, and this is called layman's common sense finance and might bring. What difference does it make?
You're asking the wrong person. We're just following our procedure.
I'm just asking, what difference does it make whether we amend last year's budget for money we spent? Why wouldn't it? Yeah, I mean, I can understand increasing your next year's budget according to the volume that you're experiencing. So,
I can answer that question because your finance director has chosen to go this path. It's easier with the auditors when we do this, to do these corrections. It's a short, sweet resolution to council, just changing the numbers. It makes it a lot cleaner for her for when she's doing her audits. So
easier with the auditor was an acceptable answer.
Right. So when she
needed to understand.
when she tells me this is going to make her job
next time.
When she tells me this makes it cleaner for the auditors, makes her job easier, I'm okay with it.
Well, I think that's what I mean, if there was something in there that said we do this annually in order to clean the books prior to audit, I would have asked any questions. It was
because Travis wrote the staff report.
Did you see who wrote the staff report?
See, but
you think I know all this? I know how much things cost. I don't know how they track it to keep it all, know where it's going. I just do what I'm told.
I know how to make it pretty.
We'll make sure Sheree provides them with the appropriate language next time for council.
And like I said, I had to ask because that was the first thing going through my head is,
hey, I could have made as Jet said, I could have made you guys a PowerPoint that was covered all up.
All right, so now I'll let Solomon speak since I'm sure that he found the spelling errors.
You took my
I took
part,
it?
so.
Sorry. It was the first thing in my brain. What? Okay, any other council comments?
So my question is the current construction permit fees calculated sufficient to meet the building plan check and the inspection services costs? And are we staying current with? Is it meeting our needs?
As you're talking monetarily covering the cost of what inspections are. So we have actually been going through with the recent budget and now it being implemented because it's a month later. The way the permit structure is set up, it should absolutely cover all of the costs, hard costs associated with the inspection and the plan checks that we get. I just got actually our rep Estelle for Wildan. She's great, and I just got done talking to her. We had a little hiccup with how some billing was done, and I wanted to make sure that there was a little more transparency on the bills, so if anybody ever questioned or asked why the charge was so much or why there was one day that 8 hours worth of inspection time go to one ticket, that we have the backup to show everything. And like I said, we'll be bringing another resolution to you guys here to make some minor amendment changes to our agreement with Wildan. But in my opinion, yes, the new budget with all the way we've done stuff is adequate for what we've seen.
I know we went through the process of raising the permit fees and trying to get this balanced, and in the future, are we looking at a timetable of 1, 2, 3, 5 years to reassess to keep this in check?
I would say it's ongoing because we're still kind of in the feel out process for obviously we switched our fee to 2.2% based on the valuation. We adopted a valuation that matched the counties. We've got our admin fee in. It's kind of going to be an ongoing thing, and it's going to be one of those where some years, if we have a decent amount of building, our costs are going to be covered. Other years, if building falls off the table, general fund's going to have to subsidize some because you're not going to have the intake of money. Yeah. But it's not going to be due to the plan check and inspection side of it, because the way we have written these fees, if you choose to go with our third party rather than going with the county, if you have a bunch of re-inspections that cause an undue burden on us, we push those costs right onto you as the builder. So as far as plan check and inspection goes, yes. Good. As far as covering the actual full cost of the counter, that's going to ride the wave of permits.
Okay.
So
perfect. Thanks.
Is that the 33,000? Is that where you're putting that in?
The 30, I'm confused.
That was the 33,000 was the first amendment to the budget from that we did in April, and then this is a second amendment.
Those would be the others that we're adding in now.
No, the 33,000 was an amendment because we had more permits pulled than we had money in our GL account to cover
I got it.
the custom.
I got it.
Yeah.
Okay, I
First and
understand.
second.
Thank you.
Exactly. So this is one just to basically finish cleaning up the books for the
Okay,
auditors.
all right, thank you.
And now I know. Okay. Any other council comments?
They've all been asked.
More than once. Okay, do I have a motion for approval of the increased appropriations for fiscal year 2021 for building professional services?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Please vote. Five ayes, motion carries.
They didn't even have to make Kyle touch and say, I'm sorry.
Good job, Travis.
We'll get there.
We were going to ask you about the spelling, but
We need to know, at least.
no, we're just torturing you. Next item on the agenda is item number 4. This is a resolution of the Ridgecrest City Council adopting the updated multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. Mrs. Spurlock.
Good evening. So tonight, what I have for you is an update for the Kern multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. So staff has been working on this starting about 2 years ago with Kern County, other jurisdictions, and consultants on the update for this. The plan identifies the hazards in our community, and it provides ways to mitigate those hazards. So the plan for Ridgecrest is part of the entire Kern County plan. And in order for the city to apply for FEMA funding and grants, we do need to adopt the hazard mitigation plan. So some of the hazards that were most prevalent that were identified was earthquake, extreme weather, and flood. Multiple mitigation actions are in the plan, but just to kind of summarize them, there's a lot of drainage improvements that would be possible, public education campaigns, there's some earthquake retrofitting, and emergency generators. So all of those actions are things that we would be able to apply for FEMA grant funding for. So the plan has already been reviewed and is pending approval from FEMA. So tonight, with the adoption of this, then it moves forward. Any questions?
Okay. I'll go right. Any council comment, questions?
No.
Then I'm not going to ask it. Okay, do I have a motion for, no other council comments. Is there any public comment? And I forgot to ask for public comment previously on the previous item, on item number 3. I do apologize. And if there should be anybody that wants to make any public comment, I will welcome the opportunity if they would like to on that item. Okay, no public comment? Do I have a motion for approval of the resolution as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Please vote. Five ayes, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. That was easy. Oh, that's right. You're in your power position for a while. Yep. Okay, next item on the agenda is a resolution of the Ridgecrest City Council approving a land purchase sale agreement with Olivia Sandoval for parcel located on Moyer Avenue, APN number 419-04210. Mrs. Spurlock.
So this is a purchase and sale agreement. This property was previously deemed surplus. A notice of availability was circulated to public agencies and housing sponsors. No interested parties contacted us, so the property was listed, and this is an offer to purchase for $11,000. That does reflect fair market value. This property is at 401 West Moyer. It's residential mobile home zoned, and it is vacant. So staff asks for approval of the resolution that authorizes the city manager to execute the purchase and sale agreement and the joint escrow instructions.
Any council comments?
Yeah, why not? Give Heather something to do, as if you don't have enough. How do these, you get to explain it a lot to us, right, to the council, especially I come by and bother you with questions, or you brief us in closed session before we come here. But for the benefit of the public, when something comes up excess like this, that the city owns, and it's now going to go out to be offered up for sale, what is that process? And I'm not asking you to dig way down deep, but how does that work just in general?
So in general, it starts with bring it to city council to deem surplus. So deeming it surplus means that we have no city public use. And then once it's deemed surplus, the state of California requires us to circulate it to affordable housing projects. So a notice gets sent of availability of the property to the Housing and Community Development Agency, and they provide us with a list. And we have to send the notice of availability to all of those parties, along with the public agencies locally. And then there is a 60-day period for them to contact us and express interest. And if nobody does, then we're able to move forward and put it on the market. So for these properties, we did list them locally with a real estate agent, and that's how we came to this point.
Thank you.
And I believe we designated them surplus at a previous meeting as well.
Right.
Okay. No other council comments? Any public comment? Oh, okay. That's fine.
I just want a couple of clarifications. Maybe these are legal questions. The resolution doesn't stipulate any escrow closing outside date. So is that indefinite? I see here, city manager is authorized to extend times for performance under the purchase and sale agreement. So is this going to be an indefinite one?
What was that?
So that's a question about
you can keep on extending, or?
Well, the only way I would extend it if there was a legitimate reason to extend. If something came up and they needed a 5-day extension, then we could extend it. But otherwise, we'll go through the normal sale period, and when the sale period's done, then we'll close. But I would say we have the ability to allow me to extend in case there's some extenuating circumstance that comes up that requires a short extension.
Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, we'd be coming back to council doing this all over again if I didn't have the ability to have a little bit of latitude.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, we don't want you to come to us every time, but my only concern is this going to be, it's a small parcel, small value, let's say 5 million deal is there.
Right.
So you have the authority forever to extend, so that's where I'm coming from.
Got it. No, this is a little bit different case.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Do I have a motion for approval of the resolution authorizing the city manager to execute purchase and sale agreement and joint escrow instructions for APN 419-04210 on Moyer Avenue?
So moved.
Second.
Please vote. Five ayes, motion carries.
Next item is item number 6. And this is, once again, another property sale. This is a resolution of the Ridgecrest City Council approving a purchase and land sale agreement with Pacific Development Corporate Company for a parcel located on Boston Avenue, APN number 081-29307. Mrs. Spurlock.
So same thing with this one. It was deemed surplus. A notice of availability was circulated. No interested parties contacted us, and we listed it, and the offer is from a company, and it's for $13,000, which is fair market value. This property is located at 1217 West Boston. It's zoned single-family residential, and it is vacant as well. So staff is asking for approval of the resolution authorizing the city manager to execute the purchase and sale agreement and the joint escrow instructions.
Any council comments? Any public comments? Hearing none. Do I have a motion for approval of the resolution authorizing the city manager to execute the purchase and sale agreement and joint escrow instructions?
So moved.
Second.
Please vote.
Oh, come on.
5 ayes, motion carries.
You notice how it bounces between one of us each
Yeah,
time?
it's
It was Peggy once, it was me once, it was you once. I think it's all a ploy.
It's all a ploy.
Yep. Next item is item number 7. This is a second reading and adoption of Ordinance 2107, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest amending the Ridgecrest Municipal Code regarding zoning code definitions. Look who's here again, Mrs. Spurlock.
All right, so this is a second reading of an amendment to the zoning code. So just to go over it again, the housing element listed several terms that needed to be updated or amended to the municipal code. In the 2020 annual progress report, the determination was made to move forward. Planning Commission heard this in June and recommended to council the adoption. And the first reading was July the 7th. So the terms that we're including are supportive housing, supportive services, target population, and transitional housing. And then there is an update to the definition of family. Any questions?
I think I asked all my questions last time.
So first, any council comments? I think we've talked this one through before. Any public comments? No public comments? So do I have a motion to waive the reading in full for Ordinance 2107, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest amending the Ridgecrest Municipal Code regarding zoning code definitions?
So move.
Second.
Please vote.
And it's Scott this time. I'm telling you, it's a conspiracy.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Following that means the next one's you. Turns out that way. I'm going to Vegas tonight. Okay. Next is, I need a motion to adopt by title only, Ordinance 2107, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest, amending the Ridgecrest Municipal Code regarding zoning code definitions.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
And second.
Please vote.
Oh. Clearly I'm not going to
5
Vegas.
ayes, motion carries.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is committee reports. Top of that list is finance. Finance did not meet in July. We'll be meeting again on the 16th of August. Infrastructure.
We did not meet. Oh, yeah, we will.
Do not.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Sorry.
Economic development.
We didn't.
Already covered.
I think you already covered it in the previous meeting.
I did, but I'm trying to remember.
Is there a
I have
second?
notes here. We already covered it. Let's move
Okay.
on.
City org. Now, I don't know if this is me or if this is you or this is a combination. I know it's you and I, but were we supposed to meet on Monday and we botched it, or did we just?
First meeting in August.
The first meeting.
First meeting in September.
In September, correct. Okay, so I just was double checking that I didn't drop the ball too bad. So the first meeting of that group will be on September the 6th. And that, for the public, that should be a lively meeting because there's, getting city org back up, there's probably a couple things that are going to get talked about that night. So, Parks and Rec, quality of life. September 6th is Labor Day, yes. I don't get holidays, so I'm okay with it, but I'm waiting for a nod from the staff or I'm sure they'll let us know a rescheduled date.
Yeah, we'll let you know the scheduled date.
Perfect, got it.
Oh, heck, I was planning on being there.
That is Labor Day. Wow.
I'll let you do quality of life.
Okay, so we did meet this week. The main topic on the agenda was the watering schedule at Freedom Park. Staff stated that they had met with Nick. There was worry of overwatering, but the explanation was that the pumps are smaller and that they take a longer period of time to work through the cycle. And so everything it looks like it's running as it should. There was some discussion about the timing of it and if that could be maybe, changed so that people that want to utilize the park areas, during the water schedule, that they may be able to do that. So they're looking into that kind of, I guess, more on a case-by-case basis, and so with the public. But let's see, we had a member of the public came and spoke during public comment and brought up some good points or topics. One was the what she considered lack of working water fountains, and brought up what I thought was a pretty good point on touchless refill or water refill stations or water stations, and kind of tied it to the COVID issue. So that might be a good idea to look into, having the ability to provide water in the parks and in a means that sanitarily meets COVID restrictions, but or
especially Scott, those water filling, water bottle. Everybody
Yes.
carries water bottles these days.
Right, and that's kind of what she was referring to, and working drinking fountains. And let's see.
I do have another thing on that, Scott. Didn't we have to shut down? When COVID first started, didn't we have to shut down a lot of fountains? I thought I remember that being a
I don't know if we shut down.
I thought we had to. I thought we had to close a lot of them off.
No, we never shut down our fountains.
Yeah, I didn't.
I think it was most businesses did try to auction.
Okay. And so, we're still waiting on the SB pool grant, waiting results, and I think we're looking, is it still November that we're, yeah. So, and then just discuss a little bit of future items, the tree lighting, and a little bit about the Indian Wells Valley softball group and meeting their needs. There was talk about artificial turf fields and investigating into whether that would be a viable option for our fields. And we talked about tree replacements for dead trees and maybe having tree donations as a source of funding that citizens could purchase a tree and have it as have a memorial plaque or some type of marker for it. And so, anything else that you'd like to add?
One other thing was if the community's wondering about like the movies at the parks days and those types of things, Parks and Rec is working on it. There's no formal announcements yet. They need to work through a plan of action, but they're working towards it. I think the biggest thing that I have to kind of stress is I think about 7 times in the course of that meeting, we kept saying COVID dependent, COVID dependent, COVID dependent, COVID dependent, because if there is a change from KCPH, it would have a direct and immediate impact, most likely, on our Parks and Rec department and on any events therefore tied into it. So I think that was probably the one thing I wanted to make sure. And then the only other thing we discussed in the quality of life aspect was just a general public awareness that we are continuing to make progress with race. We are still actively working on the fiber option, And we hope to have something to bring to the community in the very short future that will really make a huge quality of life improvement for this community moving forward in the ability to get a gigabyte up-down fiber to the majority of our community. And that's a big quality of life improvement. So I think that was the only other thing.
And one more thing I'd like to add, we also talked about the after-school programs, and that registration is currently being accepted for the pre-K to through 5th grade, and that we're looking at possibly around October starting those programs. So,
subject to COVID.
Subject to COVID. And I believe that covers pretty much everything we talked, unless, Marissa, you have anything you would like to add. Okay. You're free tonight.
It's scary the number of times we said subject to COVID last night in that meeting, because I think it's, we'll save that for mayor and council comments when we get there. But RACVB. Did you have a comment, a question?
Yeah, I did have something for Parks and Rec, but.
You're probably going to want to talk about the watering, right? Well, just to mention one thing on the Freedom Park water, we are going to have our well folks come out and take a look and see how we can maybe change our system, maybe put a well out there, a storage tank, or a different type pump, so we can water a little quicker. Because one of the things we have out there is it's just taking so long for us to get those stations.
Right. So my only comment was, and this is where I'm sure you guys either did it, have these discussions, or the staff's having them. I'm just not on Parks and Rec, and also I don't engage with staff as often as I probably should because I work during the day. But
But I read your mind, though.
You did read my mind. My statement was, I hope that we do an analysis of all of our watering schedules, whatever grass, whatever sort I'm looking for, the actual kind of grass, what it requires, what it needs, times of day. I don't know if different soils with different makeups take different water. I don't have an agriculture degree, right? But I'm sure all this stuff makes a difference. And I know from walking around those baseball fields over and over and over and over again, there has been issues there. Sometimes it's just puddles of water. Sometimes it's not watered enough. Sometimes it's the wrong time of day. And I think there is a reason for every single one of those. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is I believe the public, sometimes, not all times, they see sprinklers going or they see the parks being watered, and they have questions. There is a logical reason. The staff every time has had a good explanation of why the sprinklers are going at 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. Because people are like, oh, come on, it's the summer. You're burning the grass. There's a reason for it. I was just hoping that we would do an analysis of all of the watering schedules of all of the parks that we have.
Yeah, we are taking a look at the parks, and can we enhance our system, well systems, to be able to water during the time of the day that is more beneficial for the maintenance of the grass. So we are doing that.
Because it's a huge investment on our part,
right?
The grass.
And you'll find that most of our systems are undersized and not sized appropriately so we can water during the appropriate times.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. RACVB. Is Megan?
We didn't meet.
Oh, yeah, that last meeting was just before council meeting, wasn't it? Okay, yeah. Okay, other committees, boards, or commissions?
I had KernCog, but it was very short. It was just a review of staff, and they were doing a good job, so we said good job.
I have not had any others other than my mayor's coalition meetings and meetings with other politicals, but nothing from me. You guys got anything?
None.
No? Okay. City manager report.
Nothing at this time.
Future agenda items. Peggy? Oh. Scott?
I have a question for yourself, Mr. Mayor, or maybe Ron, or even Rika. I'm not sure. When instead of it being a future agenda item to the actual city agenda, if we just want something to go to a committee, is this also an appropriate time to bring that up?
I would absolutely say yes, or during the committee report, either one.
Okay. Yeah, I would like the light issue to come back to the infrastructure committee. I appreciate that.
You wanted it to come back to infrastructure before it comes back to council?
Yeah, because it seems like the kind of thing we need to dig down in. We need to
Okay,
discuss.
I think I probably should have just pointed it to infrastructure rather than report back to council.
No. I mean, and I believe, if I understand my all the classes I've been through, that wasn't the appropriate time for us to give direction or even discuss it.
Oh, because of public comment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Now I assume that now's the time. So, thanks, Travis. Hopefully, you're up on your light spectrum and your kelvins.
And you get an extra extension since it is until the 4th week of the month. So,
Yeah.
versus a week's time. It's giving a hard time. Any other future agenda items? Either of you gentlemen? No? I don't have anything to announce that's a specific future agenda items. I know that there's at least one project I'm working on that I have discussed with the council and I'll be bringing forward, which is called the Unsung Hero. And what I'm looking to do is to establish similar to a Key to the City type of recognition that would be at the discretion of each council member for the 2-year cycle of the council, based on the mayor's cycle, not based on the council 4-year cycle. But basically, every council member would have an opportunity every 2 years to nominate somebody who they felt they wanted to specifically recognize for their continued or ongoing efforts to improve the community with that type of Key of the City Day recognition. Again, my reasoning and motivation is largely defined by we have to continue to celebrate the great things in our community rather than spending so much time discussing the challenges of our community.
Sure.
Celebrate and diminish the arguing. So, and I think that's the only one I have that I specifically have written up. So, Mayor, council comments. We'll go right to left again. Peggy, any final comments?
None.
None? I'll let Kyle.
Oh, sure. I was expecting it to go.
Well, I usually will skip over me because I usually have something, pointed and argumentative to say at the
So
very end of the night.
you have something to say, Mr. Mayor?
Never.
All right. I wanted to extend, as I've been extending on social media and in person, and anybody who I even see in public, water is a hot button issue for all of us on the council, for multiple other agencies, businesses, and anybody in town who's receiving a water bill. Since we on the council do spend a lot of time close to it, please reach out to, even if it's not just me, reach out to your council people. Everybody on this council is knowledgeable. It's a lot different. So, we heard a member of the public say that they were not happy with it not being on the agenda. That's for a reason. Right? We can't talk about stuff that's being negotiated or those type of issues. You can make a public comment. Those are always welcomed, heavily welcomed. Yep. I appreciate them deeply. I appreciate even more people calling me, texting me, messaging me, so we can discuss those things, especially one-on-one. Out of all the times that I have said this in a public comment, I have had probably 4 people reach out to me. 2 of those people live in Trona, and we actually had a very good conversations. I do not care if you are a voter of Ridgecrest. This water issue affects everybody in the valley. So reach out for information. Let's not. I have found personally in my own life that if I'm frustrated about something, it's usually because I don't know the whole story. And it often helps to get a hold of one of us and get that figured out. That's all I have.
On behalf of the City Council, I just want to convey our condolences to the family of Deputy Philip Campus, who died line of duty. It's heartbreaking to the family. Deputy Philip is friend of a person whom I know. So it hit my heart very hard when I heard about that. So I want to convey my condolences to their family. Thank you.
Thank you, Solomon.
Thank you, Solomon. Thank you for echoing that. Just a couple quick items. First, I want to thank the Federation of Republican Women's Club. I don't know if I'm getting it right, but for the chance to speak with them on Friday. I started that conversation by saying I'm not going to talk about one word. And I want to echo what Mr. Blade said, which is that I'll be happy to have a telephone conversation with somebody. My phone number's out there. In the ethos, the same way his is. If it's not, 760-977-7090. But we are, I'm going to continue to avoid any public discussion in regards to water. And I will just remind you that once you're a defendant in a lawsuit, it tends to get you very quiet. On another one is communication. Thank you to my fellow council members who all reiterated what we've been doing with social media. And I just want to go back to reminding this community that we held a workshop in March, I think it was February, March. Let's say March. And we came out of that as a council, and it echoes back to what I said about what fun it is when a council is working well together. We sat in that room and we talked and we conversed, and the one thing that came out of that more than anything else was we have to alter our course in communication. And I want to commend City Manager Strand and as well as our city staff and as well as the direction that we're going in terms of changing that communication. Laughingly at the women's event, at the Republican Women's event, I mentioned the pothole link. And the first thing was, has anybody used it? And I said, I think one person has, and you know how long it took us to fill it? 24 hours. And they said, no way. And I said, yes, but nobody else seems to want to use it. And they got a chuckle out of that. And I said, my point here is we can lead the horse to water, but we're trying to tell them that there's water out there to drink. And maybe that's a bad analogy in the light of Ridgecrest, but my point being, and I just came off the tongue, but that's me. The point being is that we're trying very hard to change the communication dynamics of this community, and I hope the community understands that that's a concerted effort of this entire council. This entire council has indicated its dedication to that, which is fantastic. And on that level, we'll talk COVID. Obviously, there are many different issues with COVID. We have many different individual and many personal opinions, everything else. I want to reiterate that if you are an individual out there and you are in a debate about all of this junk, consult with your doctors, make your best decision for yourself as you individually feel necessary. Make the decisions that you feel are necessary, but please try to respect everyone around you, whether they choose to wear a mask or they choose not to wear a mask, whether they choose to be vaccinated or choose not to be vaccinated. It is an individual choice, and our community will survive through it, as we have so much so through respect, with the caveat that Kern County Public Health remains the most powerful entity to us right now in decision-making as it relates to COVID. Understanding that we are a city government without a public health department of our own, which means that if the county health department should follow guidance issued by the government, either at the federal, state, or county level, then we would be subject to following that same edicts. And I just want to make sure the public heard that. It's not a matter of whether we individually have an opinion completely, but there are certain things we may have a right to say, and there's going to be a lot of things we're probably not going to have a right to make a decision on. If the COVID, notice that I'm picking my words, if the COVID concerns should escalate. Hey, I was going to say something very different. Okay, that's all I have to say this evening. It's another wonderful evening. It is 7:51. Who's winning tonight? Oh, 7:15. Sorry, sunset's at 7:51. Thank you, Watch, for screwing me up. And I think that's it. Everyone have a wonderful Wednesday evening. It's a great day to be in Ridgecrest, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Who won? I did. Okay.